Hello and welcome. This is a lecture series. Please have your paper and pencils ready to take notes. This series will introduce you to a standard, give you the vocabulary and some definitions. From there, your teacher or your parent will give you an assignment to follow up with this assignment and the standard. Then you can take an assessment to ensure mastery of the standard. Let's get started. This video is going to focus on standard 8.3.W.3 for the Oklahoma Academic Standards. That's 8th grade, 3rd standard for writing, number 3. And it is a argument writing grade level focus. The language of this standard reads, students will introduce a claim, recognize at least one claim from an opposing viewpoint, and organize reasons and evidences using credible sources. Before we get into it, let's discuss one thing. These are the standards for 8th grade in Oklahoma. Notice that there are 3 types of writing that the overall 8th grade standards have: narrative, informative, and argument. My lecture series does not cover narrative and informative. It does, however, cover the 2 grade level focus standards on argument, as this is the identified focus for this grade level for testing for the Oklahoma academic standards in the OCCT testing. As a parent or a teacher, you will ensure that you are teaching your students all 3 types of writing in order for them to have the skills that they need as building blocks for coming years. Now let's get started with 8.3.W.3, and the next video will cover W.4. What is an argumentative essay? You will follow some steps to create an argumentative essay, beginning with investigating your topic. If you are on a test like the OCCT test, they will give you reading passages and then they will give you a prompt to write from. You will collect your evidence from the passage or passages that you are reading. You will evaluate your evidence to make sure that it is fitting with the prompt, and then you're going to establish your position or your opinion for or against whatever the prompt is asking you for. The thing about an argumentative essay is that you're not persuading someone to believe your opinion. You are giving a claim or stating an opinion, and then you're proving it with examples and logical reasoning. For example, if you are writing an essay and it's whether Coke is better than Pepsi, this is not an argumentative essay. That would be persuading someone to believe in your opinion, or a persuasive essay. In this instance, we are talking about taking a claim, making a statement, and proving it with examples and logical reasoning. Please pause this video and take notes from this screen. I have here an example of a graphic organizer. Before you begin to write your paper, it is very important that you collect your thoughts, organize your information, and then create your rough draft. A good writer will not skip this step. It helps to organize to make sure you are answering the prompt exactly. Please find a graphic organizer that you like or that your teacher has given you, and utilize that graphic organizer for writing. It is very important that you learn how to use that graphic organizer on your own without the use of a worksheet, so that when you sit down to take a state standardized test, you will have built a very good habit in organizing and collecting your thoughts. So this standard is a focus here on argument writing, as we've stated before. There are 4 different aspects that the wording or vocabulary of the standard had. Number 1 was to introduce a claim. Number 2 was to recognize a claim from an opposing viewpoint. Number 3 was to organize reasons and evidence. And number 4 was to use credible resources or sources. So please pause this video and write down the 4 parts of this standard. We will break them down and discuss each one at a time. So let's talk about introducing a claim. After you read the text and the prompt, you're going to decide your viewpoint that you want to defend. That is considered your claim. This standard covers the introduction of the claim and the body of the essay. The following standard will discuss more about the conclusion. So let's talk a little bit more about introducing a claim on your state testing. On the state test, again, they will give you one or more passages to read. Then they're going to give you a prompt. It is extremely important that you understand what the prompt is asking of you. Your claim needs to directly relate to the prompt and answer the question that is stated in the prompt. Please pause the video and write down the information here about introducing a claim. The second aspect was to recognize a claim from an opposing viewpoint. If somebody reads the same passages that you do and they read the same prompt, they may have a different viewpoint or a different answer to the question that is being asked. You have to consider what someone else may say. You have to consider the opposite viewpoint of yours. Think of them as trying to explain why you're wrong. What may another person say that's opposite of what you are saying? You're going to defeat those opposing ideas with evidence from the passages you are reading. You will not be able to say just because. You have to give clear evidence to effectively argue for your viewpoint or your claim. Please pause the video to write down the vocabulary reasoning for recognize the opposing view from yours. Now let's talk about organizing your reasons and evidence. It is very important to organize what you are writing. Organizing your writing will make it easy for the audience to read. It's very important to guide your reader through your reasoning process. It gives a clear explanation of your argument or your claim, and it demonstrates the credibility of your claim. This is how your paragraphs will be laid out and the essay will be laid out. You will make your claim in the introduction. In the body of paragraph 1, you're going to have a topic sentence that supports your claim and you're going to provide evidence. The body paragraph number 2 and number 3 will continue this pattern so that you will have eventually 3 topic sentences and you will have 3 pieces of evidence that support your claim made in the introduction. In the following video, we will talk about conclusions. Please pause this video and write down the information on this screen. Finally, let's talk about using credible sources. Whenever we talk about this standard, we have 2 ways to look at it. One is if we're writing a research paper, and the other is if we are taking a test, or we're answering a question from a prompt. You have to make sure you use evidence from the passage that you are reading. If you are writing a research paper and you are doing an argumentative essay, you must state the evidence very clearly from the text that you have read or you're pulling your evidence from. If you are reading passages on a state standardized test, you must also very clearly state where the evidence comes from. Once you make your claim and you choose a particular piece of evidence you want to use, you might highlight it or mark it so that you know exactly where it is in the text. Then you might say something like, on line number so-and-so, the author stated this. You want to be very clear about where your evidence is coming from. You do not want to be ambiguous or vague. Please pause the video and write down the information here on using credible sources. Let's talk about rubrics. There is a rubric that is provided on all state standardized tests. Your teacher or your parent has probably provided you with a rubric for your writing as well. Oklahoma does have a standard rubric for 8th grade writing. It is very important for you to read the rubric to understand exactly what is expected of you. It's a little bit like a map or a grading system. Whenever you do your pre-writing, thinking, or brainstorming, then you do your rough draft, you might go to the rubric next and look to see if your rough draft is a top level writing. Did you score yourself a 4 on everything, or the highest marks you can get? You need to be honest with yourself. If you do not do well on the rubric with yourself grading it, how do you think it's going to come across to the teacher or the state when they grade it? It's probably going to be just as low. So be honest with yourself in grading yourself. Take the time to look at the rubric and grade your paper. Fix it where you see is necessary, and then write your final essay. This is true whether you're writing an essay to turn into your teacher for an assignment or whether you are doing state standardized testing. Take a minute to pause the video and write down the information here about reading the rubric. Let's look at the language of the standard for grade 8, standard 3, writing point 3 for argument. For the grade level focus, for this standard we talked about introducing a claim, recognizing at least one claim from an opposing viewpoint, and organize reasons and evidences using credible sources. Our next video will cover W.4. Now that you understand what this standard is about and what the grade level focus for the essay on the OCCT test or state standardized test will be, please ensure that you are practicing these skills with your teacher or your parent. Then make sure you take an assessment to ensure that you have mastery of this skill. Thank you very much for joining me today.